Good afternoon. How are you? Well, it's according to Thomas Jefferson, 42 degrees, and the humidity is 47%, and the wind is 2 miles an hour. So nothing, no big headline there. um, let's talk about the Department of Injustice. When I was an assistant U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York, I had occasion to come to D.C. and to deal with what they call Main Justice. And I was one of many AUSAs over the years who's been honored at the Department of Justice's Great Hall. And it is that. It's a large hall. And it is nice to basically receive the commendation of those you work with for an honor from the department. That was then. This is now. The New York Times has a fabulous article explaining, in a way, those unfamiliar with how the department did work and what is wrong with it today. And they chose as a point of departure for the article how a former Solicitor General of many years, and I think 10 presidencies, was a Solicitor General, and that's Mr. Kneedler. I've never had occasion to say his name before, so I apologize if I mispronounced or misemphasized his name. As compared to, say, John Sauer, or Sawyer, however you like to say his name, Trump's personal lawyer, who heads the Solicitor General's office. And under him, what do we have? Mass departures, turmoil. And why? Why does a person leave the department? Well, there are a variety of legitimate, non-controversial reasons. But it is because your character demands it. Your notion of what it means to be an officer of the court and a representative of the United States and of its citizens is a special assignment. In the Southern District, Silvio J. Malo, in his office when I was an assistant U.S. attorney, he said that when we go into a courtroom, we represent the United States. The entire United States. We stand there on behalf of the people. And doing what's right and just is our objective. So by that standard, said in various ways to many different people over the years, not just in the Southern District, but in the 90 plus districts across the nation. So when we have a person who is currently heading the Solicitor General's office, causing such turmoil, what does that mean? What causes that? Well, for example, normally a brief written by that office goes to the court and is viewed with some sagacity because often the people who write these memos clerked for the Supreme Court. I was a law clerk, but not in the Supreme Court, a lower court, the Second Circuit, New York, Vermont, Connecticut. And but the kind of demands and exposure one gets as a law clerk is critical. So we often have somebody who's a law clerk, may have argued cases in private practice and then gone to the court. There are a whole variety of ways that one might end up in the Solicitor General's office. So the White House, not the Justice Department, has been adding introductions with comments ascribed to Trump, fiery language. Now, the Solicitor General's office has existed since 1870, and there is a tradition, a good tradition, and it's been tried and experimented with, and so it's been synthesized into something that is credible, that presents itself as impartial, but as what the law is. Now, that's hard to do in advocacy, so there are limits to that, obviously. But the current Solicitor General has a way of writing fawning descriptions of Trump in that introduction. You should know, he is the one who, first of all, not only was he Trump's personal lawyer, he was the one who made the immunity argument to the Supreme Court. So we have people leaving because they won't bow their knee. They won't exist in terms of loyalty. They are being invoked for their character, for their acumen, for their knowledge, for their familiarity with the law, for discretion. Also, those who left were impressed and disappointed by the mass firings, which caused crashing morale for sure. And then the legal stands that the new Department of Indifference toward justice would have them take. So, what does it mean when somebody says that the Solicitor General's office is crushing it because they have so many wins? Consider who they're appearing before, the Trump Six. And so, what do you anticipate is going to happen when you come to a bench that starts out with a high proportion of expectation that the Six will go with Trump and the government? That's why he appointed them there. He put them there to advance his positions, and he reminds them in every way he can. And the introduction is obviously for that purpose as well. Now, you've heard me cite from time to time Seneca, a Roman senator, Stoic. And he talks about how it shames a warrior to win against a lesser adversary. That a warrior, a man, would add others to oppose or to fight in a combat sense. What do we have when we have a fixed outcome with rare exception? I'm talking about the Trump Six. A man, according to Seneca, pits himself against the strongest. What if a man has no adversary? Now, it's not that simple. There's a tug and war, there's a public demonstration, there's a give and take. But we see that this Supreme Court is acting like no Supreme Court, perhaps, in history, and there may be exceptions to that. A couple bounce around in my head, Tani being one of them. But what happens when the argument you make to a court does not challenge your thinking, does not open up the argument in such a fashion? Seneca said, without an adversary, prowess shivers. So should reputation. So should it be diminished. I recommend that if you get a hold of the Times, that you read it, because what it does is it drills down in a way that you'll be able to understand, as a lot of the writing has done lately, writing and speaking about how the courts work and how they're not working now. And so that's what I got today, thinking about the law. And a close friend of mine for many years, I spoke to him today, and he's losing, even as I speak, and this will be hours before you hear it, he's losing his life's mate. And so I'm a little distracted by that. I may talk more about that later. So have a good evening, and I'll talk to you tomorrow from the Cathedral of Trees. Bye-bye.